Hey everyone, just want to encourage you to find us on your listening platform and give us a rating. Anywhere you listen to that has a rating system, go on over and give us a rating and maybe leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. These ratings really do help. Thank you so much for listening. On to this week's episode.
Yo, Nicole.
Hey, Rolando.
So, question. How many movies did this director that everyone loves but is, I think, overrated, Quentin Tarantino, how many movies did he say he's going to direct in his lifetime before he stops making movies?
10.
10. What number are we on?
9.
We're on number 9. Okay, now do you think he said that because he's planning, after his 10th film, to just direct TV shows exclusively? Because I feel that's where Hollywood is just going. Like, we're just getting a straight up flood of directors saying, "It's like, goodbye, film. I'm going to TV now."
No. So although he is planning on making a miniseries, which is funny enough.
There you go.
He said it's not going to be his last film, but he actually wants to focus on writing. So for him,
writing television, probably, right?
No, books. Like, I have his book and stuff.
Oh, like, ew, gross.
I know. Who reads books, right?
I know, right?
Losers. And they're in book clubs too. But I do think for everyone else, because you're talking about the exception to the rule here, right? Like, Tarantino's an exception to the rule, but most of them will do probably exactly what you're talking about. I mean, even Martin Scorsese has directed television.
Has he? Was he directed?
He directed
Entourage?
Vinyl. No. David Fincher has directed television. He's director of Fight Club, 7, Gone Girl, So
And, yeah, he did Manhunter, right? Mindhunter,
yes.
Mindhunter, which I liked. I thought that was a good show. No, the reason I bring this up is because I don't know. I feel like maybe Quentin Tarantino, give enough money and he'll do a Netflix original series, a reimagining of some sorts, just like Tim Burton did in today's episode, Wednesday. And I've got opinions. I've been dying to talk about this since last week, so let's get right into it. I'm Rolando.
And I'm Nicole.
And this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals,
an original podcast
about
unoriginality. A family member of mine who listens to the show was like, Rolando only rolls his R for his name. He doesn't roll his R at any other point in the show. It's like the flair he gives. You don't say.
Yeah, it's for my name.
Yeah, you don't say. Remakes.
Remakes? That's not how you pronounce it. Remakes, reboots, and revival. I'm not like Sofia Vergara.
You should be. I'm actually disappointed that you're not.
She's like, her character is such a caricature that like it in retrospect it's a little problematic. I enjoy the show. Like I'm not coming for it. I'm just saying, but like if you peel back that she is the source of comedy because she is an other. Yes,
exactly. I love her. I think she's great. But like when white people are like, oh, she reminds me of Sofia Vergara, I get very upset.
Right.
Yeah.
Who, interestingly enough, I was just like, why didn't we cast her as Morticia?
Yeah, are we just going to get straight to the thing you've been wanting to talk about?
Oh my God.
Get right into it.
So been holding this in.
Well, you're not going to tell me about, your weekend at the game con that you went to?
Yeah, sure. So Eddie and I went to PAX Unplugged. What's up, guys? If anyone was there and knows I was in the podcast, we had a few fans come up to me being like, hey, aren't you Rolando from the Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals? No, that didn't happen, obviously. But interestingly enough, I did. We ended up getting to the tail end of like this meet and greet of YouTube stars, right? They do like Dungeons and Dragons YouTube videos, and it was one of those weird things where I'm just like, we're meet and greeting YouTubers now? Like, I guess this is the era we're in, right? So where's my meet and greet is what I'm saying.
Well, where's your YouTube?
Well, no, we have a podcast. We have listeners. We have
subscribers.
Emails.
And like my mom doesn't have that many, emails, so they're not all my mom. So
it's just made me wonder. It's just like, wow, we're like really in this new era of media production, and I think that ties into ultimately like the interesting decision of having Tim Burton go to, a serialized TV show like Netflix and stuff. It's just like, because I think it's just, we're seeing like these big powerhouse names like just like kind of moving away from the screen, which is something that I enjoy films. I do, but it's just like I just enjoy watching TV shows more because I think you just get a better story sometimes. Not all the time.
Not all the time. Yeah.
But yeah, no, PAX Unplugged was fun. We got to check out some new games, and I got to play some Blood on the Clock Tower, which is more or less a social deception game. Only got to play one round of it, only because it was so packed. Like, this place was just packed.
Wow.
Yeah. Otherwise, how about you?
Well, I didn't go, so.
I mean, how was your weekend? Did you see anything exciting?
Last movie I saw was The Fabelmans, the new Spielberg movie.
Oh, how is it? I'm actually considering watching that.
I thought it was great. It's amazing that this guy at 74 years old is still, pulling out bangers, because West Side Story last year was also one of the best films of last year.
I mean, I know we knocked down old people, but like they're still running our country, so I guess we shouldn't be putting them down completely.
Well, I mean, not everyone at his age is pulling out the quality of work he's doing. I'll say that.
Not everyone his age has money, so.
Well, there's plenty of filmmakers that continue making movies till they're old and they're not very good. So, do you want an example?
Yeah, that's like.
Oh, so it's hard because Spielberg is such a household name and such a big one that he's another one of those exceptions to the rule. I mean, even the old school studio filmmakers, like Michael Curtiz or Howard Hawks that were making it in Hollywood, their last films were terrible. Billy Wilder, who made Sunset Boulevard and Some Like It Hot and The Apartment and Double Indemnity, like his last movie was Buddy Buddy in 1981. Like that's what he was doing in his 70s. A movie you've never heard of, a movie that's not available and is not very good. But like if this was Spielberg's last film, I mean, this could be an Oscar contender. So that's like the quality he's doing at his age while other filmmakers weren't. So, but it's hard for me to pull one now because like you say, they're going to television. But
Spielberg's already been involved in television.
Yeah, Spielberg was involved with Amazing Stories and Twilight Zone back in the 80s too, so.
Which we didn't cover, Most Amazing Stories.
No, we didn't. So that's enough of that. I would suggest if you can see The Fabelmans, it's not playing in many theaters, oddly enough, but it was a very good movie. And very psychological almost. He gave himself therapy with the movie, so it's very good.
Yeah, no, that's it's one of the few movies I do kind of want to see this year.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so let's get into Wednesday, the long-awaited discussion. I mean, are we going to tackle Catherine Zeta-Jones first, or should we give kind of like a history of the show?
I guess we could give a little bit of history or backstory of the show before we get into the Catherine Zeta-Jones of it all.
First of all, we want to say that we have done a deep dive into I hate that phrase, deep dive, but we've done it for the Addams Family. We did in 2019 when the animated film came out. We talked about the 60s show. We talked a little bit about Charles Addams, the Raul Julia and Angelica Houston films of the early 90s, and then the animated films. So you kind of want us to go property by property. I suggest you listen to that episode because today's focus is going to be this reboot series of Just Wednesday. Kind of like a special episode.
And we'll add it into the show notes. So if you want to because I don't think
it might not be on Spotify
or on the apps. I think you have to go to the actual website.
Some of our episodes have expired, so we will provide a link to the Podbean and our website.
That's all I have to say.
That's all. Yeah. All right. So, okay, Rolando. Usually, Rolando's the guy who knows all the Netflix history stuff. So I defer to you on this.
All right, got it. All right. So, did you know that Tim Burton was originally tapped to direct the first Addams Family?
I see it.
Yeah, he was. So he backed out to do Batman Returns.
Good call.
Is it a good call? Because I love Batman Returns, but I could have waited. Or I would have waited to see Addams Family.
I didn't mind Barry Sonnenfeld's direction.
Oh no, I love Addams Family and Addams Family values, right?
So why are you questioning it?
I'm just curious to see if just like what could have been, right? And I do argue the Wednesday show is not it, right? And I'll explain why I think it's not it, despite the fact that right off the bat I will admit it's probably one of my favorite things to come out this year. But Tim Burton, it is not, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he was tapped to direct the Addams Family in 1991, but he backed out because of scheduling conflicts with Batman Returns. And it was in March of 2010 that Illumination Entertainment had acquired the rights to the Addams Families. And they had initially planned on making a stop-motion animated film based on the Addams Family, right?
Yeah.
The film was canceled, and Tim Burton was actually attached to do it. I guess similar to like Nightmare Before Christmas kind of thing, maybe just produce it. The current showrunners of the show, Miles Millar and Alfred Goff, they started developing story ideas in 2019 when they acquired the intellectual property before they wrote a pilot, and they pitched it to Burton. And Burton was actually interested upon receiving the script, which surprised them. So they started working together to kind of get the rights, and it wasn't announced officially until October 2020. So we're well into the pandemic at this point when we announced it's like, hey, we're working on an Addams Family Wednesday spin-off show, and Tim Burton is attached, much to the surprise of a lot of people, because I remember when the announcement came out, I think I rolled my eyes. I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Right? Because like there was also at the same time concurrently an Addams Family movie in development.
Well, the animated film had come out.
Had it come out already? Yes, you're right.
It had. And I think actually the sequel had come out, at least by the time I heard about it.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it was just kind of like, it felt like too much. And it also kind of felt like, oh, wow, does Tim Burton really have nothing better to do? Can you think of the last film that Tim Burton made before he made? Like, what's the last film he worked on before he did Wednesday?
Wasn't it the Alice in Wonderland?
Look at that. He's been so kind of phoning it in for like 10 years that you can't even think of it. It's Dumbo. And we covered Dumbo.
Oh, my God, you're right. Dumbo. Wow.
Yeah, he did Dumbo.
He did Dumbo.
But like when you think of Tim Burton, you don't think of Dumbo.
You don't, despite the fact that we didn't hate Dumbo, right? We didn't love it.
We didn't
remember that much, but we didn't hate it either.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
it was somewhere in the middle.
It wasn't. Yeah, like it was one of those things where like, oh, I see. He was trying to do something, but it just didn't land completely.
Yeah.
Right.
Just like Dumbo.
Just like Dumbo. Which same thing. We'll link that episode in our show notes because I think we talk about our feelings of Dumbo.
Yes, we do. Actually, Rolando has a really good theory about Dumbo and what Dumbo's backstory was. So, but tune in for that to listen to more. Before that, I think he did like Miss Peregrine's School for Children. He did a film called Big Eyes about the painter who, I can't remember her name right now, but she was prolific for creating like people with big eyes. And her story
kids,
was
right?
that, say that again?
It was like kids, so she would paint kids.
Yeah,
with big
kids.
eyes?
But her story was that her husband was taking credit for her work. And he became famous, and like for years until it came out that she was the true artist.
Margaret Keane.
There we go. Yes, Margaret Keane. Before that, he made Dark Shadows, which I actually kind of enjoyed. Frankenweenie was 2009 or 2010. Yeah, Dark Shadows 2012.
Frankenweenie was 2012.
Frankenweenie was 2012. Big Eyes 2014. Miss Peregrine 2016. And it's just like these are all kind of films that just came out and they were fine and well, but it's not like the Tim Burton films of the 90s and maybe even some of the ones in the 2000s. So he's kind of fizzled out in my personal opinion.
Well, I would agree with you if this idea of Tim Burton, he's so known for like kind of his style. Right? Like he has a specific style that you think of Tim Burton, which is usually big eyes, kind of very pointy, angular faces, or makeup that makes you look even like more pointed and gaunt.
Gaunt, yeah.
Very, very gaunt.
I'm not sure actually. You're probably saying it right. Gaunt.
And a very, very pale color palette.
Yeah.
Usually a very, very pale cast as a result, right? Because I know on my TikTok, a lot of critiques of the Tim Burton aesthetic as being very, very ingrained in like white culture. Is that right? Or
Yeah.
I think it's just like a very, it's for white people. It's not that it's for white people, but how it's just like he casts very specifically just usually majority white folk. I don't want to say exclusively because I don't know all his work, but a lot of white folk tend to be lead roles in his work.
Yeah, actually, I could pull up a quote from him. In 2016 with Bustle, he actually defended his past projects that have been extremely white by saying, things either call for things or they don't.
And his work apparently just doesn't call
and
for
his work
any
doesn't
people
call
color.
for any, they don't call for, just you got to be pale. You got to be Snow White.
Right.
I have more
So-
things I'm going to pull from that later on, but for that, I just wanted to say that now.
Which is, I think that's not cool, man. Like, especially considering he's like such a big name in entertainment.
Yeah, and I feel like he also speaks largely to a counterculture at somewhat. He's not, he's
Like the
very
goth kids?
mainstream. You could say goths are part of counterculture. Even though he's a mainstream name and he has a lot of fan base, I do feel like there is something outcasty about him, or at least outcasty about the way that his fan base feels about him. Like they feel themselves as if oh, we love him because he gets us, kind of a thing. Or like, especially with like Nightmare Before Christmas and even Edward Scissorhands, who is this huge outcast character. And all, Beetlejuice, another huge outcast character. Even Pee-wee in his own way is a freaking outcast. He made a movie,
Dumbo.
Ed Wood, one of his Dumbo,
an
yeah.
outcast.
Ed Wood, the worst filmmaker of all time, and him and his outcast friends and Ed Wood liked to, dress up in women's clothes. Like in
Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka, exactly. Sweetie Todd. So like that's his whole aesthetic too, is this sort of outcast thing. So in that way, Wednesday is perfect from him, and then like the whole goth thing, whatever. So it's just so interesting because he speaks so dearly to those people and that aesthetic that he is kind of like this whitewashing figure.
Well, if you think about it, right? Like, I guess in his eyes, he associates that culture with white people, right? As the media, I guess, portrays them usually. Let's be real. Like, how often do you see like Latina goth?
Well, let me go back to this article. He said, I remember back when I was a child watching the Brady Bunch, and they started to get all politically correct. Like, okay, let's have an Asian child and a black. I used to get
and a black.
And I quote, I used to get more offended by that than just, I grew up watching blaxploitation movies, right? And I said, that's great, but I didn't go like, there should be more white people in those movies.
What? That's not the same thing at all, though.
It's not the same thing at all. That's a thing that white people love to say. Like, oh, BET, I don't see a white people network. The point is,
And that's not true because they had Justin Timberlake a lot on BET.
Well, the point is also that every network is white people network.
That's the other thing, right? It's just like,
Yeah.
blaxploitation doesn't need the white folk because that is
Because
for
every other
literally-
movie is white people.
Exactly.
It's just so interesting because pretty much what he's saying is like, hey, like, why are we making all of these things about things that they're not? Why can't things just be normal? And his normal is just white people. He doesn't hang out with other people. That's just me reading between the lines. So it's whatever. It's a lot of people. He's not the only person.
Oh no, he's not. But he is.
But is he
the
the
one we're talking about right now?
But is he the person to be directing and to be the visionary behind this new film that's supposed to be more representative?
TV
and that
show.
is the question. Yeah, this new TV show.
This new reimagining TV show of the Addams Family.
Yeah. So how would you summarize this plot? Because it's a little complicated, but let's keep it simple.
If I could keep it simple, although this is like the most watched series on Netflix, I
Yeah.
think right now historically. So like, spoilers ahead, guys, but y'all probably have seen this, and that's why y'all listening. So, welcome. But basically, Wednesday Addams has been expelled from her school, and as a last resort, Morticia and Gomez send her off to Nevermore Academy to matriculate there because that's the only school that will accept her. This school is a school for gifted kids or kids with magic powers or
More outsiders.
thank you, they're outsiders, right? We got gorgons, vampires, werewolves, people with no faces for some reason that is never answered.
Yeah,
But,
right.
she stumbles into a mystery of some sorts that she finds herself to be the center of. That is more or less the plot of the show.
All these shows that take place in these like academies and somewhat, is this all Harry Potter's doing?
Maybe this is way more Riverdale than Harry Potter for sure. And
I just like
love
you know
Riverdale, so.
like a bunch of people with either powers or who are different in an isolated community, all wearing uniforms and school together. Like it feels Harry Potter-ish.
I think it feels more like Xavier's School for Gifted Children.
X-Men, yeah.
Okay.
So it does have that more. I mean, it's specifically, they say it a lot. It's a school for outcasts.
Well,
and that's what is said about Xavier. It's a school for outcasts and mutants.
Yeah.
So
those films came out around the same time too. So maybe then that ubiquitousness of
X-Men
both
has been around since like the 70s.
Right, but it was never as popular as the Harry Potter, like Harry Potter's best-selling books of all time.
Sure.
And superhero culture, you know, became more of a thing in the 21st century. Like, you know, all before you were viewed as a geek if you read graphic novels, but now everyone's cool, and graphic novels and superhero culture is super cool. And that's more of a 21st century thing. So they all kind of, you know, became popular at the same time. But I do think, like, you know, Harry Potter being the best-selling book series and just being as much of a smash as it was, I feel like if we were to blame something, we might blame Harry Potter. Just because it feels... Also, because, like, this is, like, the third, potentially even fourth Netflix show we've, like, covered that felt kind of this way. Like, we did Winx. We did Sabrina.
Right, Winx. Sabrina, right.
Was there another... I feel like there was... I mean, we did Gossip Girl, but that wasn't, like, Special Powers Academy kind of a thing.
There was another one. There was one that does come to mind. I just don't remember what the...
Right? I feel like there's one other one that I'm forgetting that was probably the worst one. How could it be worse than Winx? I don't know.
No, Winx was definitely the worst.
Winx was the worst.
Hardy Boys also comes to mind, but there was no special powers.
There was no like
during the
fantasy aspects.
Are we talking specific? I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where this idea of kids in a school, they all have powers, isn't just new to Harry Potter. I think Harry Potter might be the most famous one, but I think you've seen examples of this in the 80s and 90s in TV programming. I mean, one of the shows, Eddie's favorite shows from the 80s, was about literal kids in a school and they all had magic powers. You know what I mean?
No,
what show was that?
They were mutants.
What show is that?
Tower High.
Tower High.
Which you won't be able to
Never
find
watched.
anywhere.
Yeah. Wow. What a deep cut.
But the different. Well, why I compare Nevermore more to Xavier's School is, one, Nevermore specifies as an outcast. There is like the language they use is outcasts and normies, right?
I like that.
There's that, and even though I feel like it took a while, but it was never clear. So people know that Nevermore is a school where you're gonna get werewolves. You're gonna get gorgons. You're gonna get witches.
Yeah, all the freaks
it's like
go there.
This is a world where people know that those things exist. That the supernatural creatures exist. You know, even though it's never blatantly said, is referred to or is commented. But so this Nevermore, just like Xavier School, people know that that's a school for freaks, for special people, for the outcasts. Where Harry Potter is like, you can't even find Hogwarts unless you're specific to that community.
I guess it's just more so like in the way that they like the uniforms, the activities, you know, the relationships with the classes, the herbology classes and stuff. That feels more Harry Potter. But yeah, the rooted in the relationship of how people view it in the town. You're right. That does feel more Xavier. So it's like definitely, I feel like, amended.
And we've had different versions of like Monster High, so to speak.
Monster
you know, if you think
High,
of so you have the show called Monster High,
it's like,
right? And then you have Legacies, which is a spinoff from that vampire show.
Yeah, the Vampire Diaries. There's
Vampire
also
Diaries.
now The Descendants on Disney Channel.
Yeah,
like that's like a huge franchise.
Yeah.
That follows like young kids that are like descendants of like.
Yeah,
it's like like there's so many of these things now. Like when did Tower High come out, in the 80s?
No, I think it was 90s.
90s?
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it wasn't like a huge show. It was more like, smaller.
No, it was it was way smaller. And the premise was that they were just individuals with powers. And the thing was, if you were a kid and the government find out you had powers, they would just grab you and put you in the school. And it was basically a prison. You couldn't get out of the school. You had to serve.
Wow.
But I think in terms of, more or less, the popularity of Harry Potter was that they're just mystery books wrapped around magic, right? Like that's really the core of a Harry Potter book. It's every story is a mystery story. They just happen to be taking place in like this magical setting. You could take the magic out, and I think the Harry Potter books will still be just as compelling because it's a mystery. And I think that's more or less what these shows have just gravitated towards, this idea of like, okay, let's put high school students in these higher stakes mysteries and stuff, right? And that's truly, what an age for TV programming, because this show does take a lot from, I think, Riverdale. And I know some people have kind of been like, ew, Wednesday, it's now like a teen drama and stuff. And like, yeah, so what? So what that it's a teen drama? Because I found it delicious. There's nothing wrong with adults enjoying teen dramas because it's escapism, right? Like, it's literally why we watch this kind of content, right? Like, yeah. For that very reason.
Mm-hmm. So let's put off talking about Catherine Zeta-Jones yet again. No, all right. So actually, let's get into it, right? Let's talk about the performances. The main one being that Wednesday is played by Jenna Ortega, who she's 18, I think. She's no more than 20. And she's already getting a reputation as being a scream queen. She was in Scream 5 or Cream. She was in 5 Cream. She was in X, the Ty West film. That was the throwback to like 70s, Texas Chainsaw. She was in another like kind of psychological horror film, and now she's playing Wednesday Addams. That's quite the year to have. All in 2022. And she's making a name for herself. And do we know her? Is she Puerto Rican?
Yeah, so she is Puerto Rican Mexican.
Puerto Rican Mexican.
Beautiful mix, yeah. She's a beautiful young girl. She's really talented, and I think she's going to be a big star. I hope so too. I think she's great. The other members of the Addams family are also played by Latino characters, except for one.
Except for what? Morticia Addams, yes, played by Catherine Zeta-Jones, who Eddie told me is like, wait, did you know she's not Hispanic? I was like, what are you talking about? That sounds wrong. I'm like, someone's like clearly out to get Catherine Zeta-Jones. He's like, we looked it up. It's like, oh my God, she's Welsh.
She's Welsh. Yeah. So her father is Welsh and her mother is Irish, and she was born in Swansea, Wales.
Do you know who else is a Hispanic? Who I found out also because of Eddie.
That who isn't Hispanic or who is?
Yeah, who is not.
Latino.
Who's not Latino.
Who?
Also related to Catherine Zeta-Jones in a film. They have a connection together.
And it can't be Antonio Banderas.
It is Antonio Banderas. He's
from Spain.
But he identifies as Spaniard, European, so he's not Latino.
He is not Latino. So Latino is usually a mix of indigenous cultures from the Americas, Afro-Latino, so you could be a mix of black also, and the Spanish conquistadors and stuff. So he does not identify as. So I don't want to perpetuate.
But then wait a minute. So then Penelope Cruz is not Latino because she's Spain. She's from Spain.
But there you go. So maybe not. Yeah, she might not be. Oh, is a Latino the right word, or is it Hispanic? I know that definitely not Hispanic.
No, Hispanic was created. That's a word that was like all words are created, but this was to identify. I think that was the American government.
Okay, there you go. So there we go. Yeah. I don't know. It's like that is a thing though, right? Like where you can be from Spanish people, like the people from Spain, does not mean that you are Hispanic just because you talk. Or Latino, because you speak Spanish.
There we go.
Right?
Yeah. Well, Catherine Zeta-Jones does not speak Spanish.
Well, she does.
Anywhere from.
But she's not like, she's very fluent in Spanish, but she's not.
Oh, is she? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she is, yeah.
Oh,
but
good for her.
She's not herself Latina or Spanish, right? Like, so.
Okay.
It's interesting. She just has like these features that make her look like she is
Now, is Morticia in the show though portrayed as like what was her? There was like a part where you see her last name like Fomp or something. Morticia
from.
Yeah, so maybe Morticia's not.
So
Hispanic.
maybe, but she does drop like when she's talking with Wednesday, she does drop some like Spanish lingo and stuff in there, right? Like she says it very Hispanic, like to the point where I thought she was just like, oh, okay, cool. So this is before I found out that she is Welsh, and I'm just like, okay, cool. So Morticia's also like Hispanic, but in the story's defense, like this could be things that she just picked up being married to Gomez for so long, right?
Yeah.
Like it happens where white people will pick up like some phrases here and there, and like, you know, if you're married or you're in a long-term relationship with a Hispanic, you know, you'll take them like mi amor, me, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Mija.
Okay.
So but we definitely know that the father,
Yes.
Gomez, is Mexican descent. So we get that
In the show?
In the show, yeah, in the show.
Okay, in the
Oh,
show.
what is that actor's name again? Gomez
Luis
Adams
Guzman.
Yes,
He's
played by
Puerto
Luis
Rican.
Guzman, yeah.
He's Puerto Rican.
Luis Guzman, who I know him. I've seen, he's one of those actors that shows up in a lot of things, but like you may not really know him. I know him best from Community because he had a whole episode centered around him being the most famous alumni from the community college and stuff. So he has a statue dedicated to him on the campus.
Yes.
And stuff. And so he makes an appearance. It's hilarious. But no, Luis Guzman is one of those actors that I've seen. Usually he's really typecast as like playing these, well,
he was in Puerto Rican in Paris. Puerto Ricans in Paris.
Is that a
Famous 2015 movie, Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights.
He was at Boogie Nights. Look at that. See?
The Count of Monte Cristo, Community. He's done a lot of shit.
No, yeah.
he's
Like
done.
Luis Guzman is well known. He wasn't. So he actually, his portrayal in the first episode, I was kind of like, oh, I'm not sure if I like him as Gomez. I was kind of a little bit let down. It's not until like a later episode where we see him and he's actually like performing that I'm just like, oh, okay, thank God. Like Luis Guzman, you didn't let me down. Like, because that first episode I think was not a good indicator of his overall performance. But Catherine Zeta-Jones, who is not Latina, right? But I liked her as Morticia. What are your thoughts?
I liked her. I mean, I didn't finish the show, so I don't know if she comes back quite a lot, but
she's only there's I think
There's
two
a couple
episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Two episodes is all she shows up in.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The first and the middle.
I liked her. I just, it's Angelica Houston's so iconic to me as Morticia that when I see someone who plays her very differently, and almost I'm like, is this Morticia? So I didn't really get like she played Morticia very differently. But everybody kind of, obviously everyone's giving this their own portrayal and stuff. And I don't know.
It's not just her own portrayal, but like the character also has her own relationship with Wednesday. So this is the oldest we have seen Wednesday so far in any medium. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important because we sometimes forget that Wednesday in even the Addams Family Values was still like, I think, preteen. She wasn't like, I don't even think she was hitting like teenage years yet. So we've always seen Wednesday as a child, and there's something I thought that as I was watching, I realized just like, yeah, why wouldn't Wednesday Addams also rebel from her parents, right? Like I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with like rebelling and trying to form your own identity however she may and butting heads with her family. And I thought that was like an interesting, because of that, I felt kind of compelled with this character, like, and this kind of terse relationship between Morticia and Wednesday I kind of appreciated because, I grew up, my mom and my sister have had a very terse relationship because of lifestyle choices, right? Like usually moms like want what's best for their kids. I know that Catherine Zeta-Jones isn't white, isn't Latina, neither is Morticia, but there is this idea of in Hispanic families, right? Like you want them to steer clear from like drugs and like be like almost like the Virgin Mary forever, right? Mm-hmm. And usually, we rebel. We do what we want to do and stuff because usually on our Hispanic households we have like a very, very tight rule So I did appreciate that relationship, like kind of setting up like the main source of tension being that Wednesday just does not. She doesn't want to be like her mother. She doesn't want to be like Gomez either and stuff. I appreciated it.
You felt that? I didn't really feel that.
Oh yeah, no. I thought it was like the whole.
It's mainly for her. I see more her mother. I definitely feel that relationship of not wanting to be in her mother's shadow, and fighting all like her mother's way of imposing herself on Wednesday's personality, which is Wednesday's interpretation. While this is just a mother loving her daughter, knowing that her daughter is complicated. More ways than one, of course. Yeah.
Maybe that plays in some of the later episodes that,
I think it played right from the first episode where I was just kind of like, oh, this is great. I like this.
Well, my favorite thing about the first episode was her relationship with Pugsley, because if she was...
That's true. I thought that was cute, too.
She, even though she wasn't showing it, she was being incredibly protective of him and the fact that he was being bullied. And the first episode is very much like, oh, Wednesday, you want to be on her side if you're being bullied. And they presented all of these bullies. And obviously the show that she gets the college school, that she gets expelled from, and then at this new academy there are new bullies. And this is where I immediately started to disconnect from the show, just because you guys kind of hyped up the representation part of it, and I was like super excited to see how they were going to do it. And then almost immediately I was like, okay, so the bad people are black. And
just one girl.
The good people are white. And
okay. And you didn't finish the show.
You didn't finish the show.
Yeah, but here's also the thing. I'm sure that they give her an arc, because they give all villains an arc nowadays. And I'm sure she has, I don't know, a relationship with her mother that mirrors Wednesday's, right? Probably something like that.
Well, something a little bit.
Okay, sure.
There's definitely something. I mean, they do introduce her mother.
Yeah.
On Family Day, and you do get the backstory that
what's going on with
her and that
and they realize that they know more about it, they have more in common than they think, blah blah blah. The guys though that are the love interest, I can't get with that. They are two of the most uninteresting boys that they could have casted, and I almost think they did it on purpose, and I was so devastated that they were just these, awkward white guys, because I've seen these love interests a million times before, and I thought that maybe Wednesday would go against the fucking grain and maybe at least throw one person who, I don't know, looked like you or looked like me in there. More so like, I was like, oh, maybe they'll give her like a fucking androgynous woman that she'll be torn with. And they didn't even fucking go there.
So I don't disagree with you there. I agree. I thought that these two love interests were the two, no offense to you guys, but like they were the two plainest looking white men.
Just so fucking boring.
I was very, very much angry early in the series about it, because I'm just like, come on, this is what they're giving the beautiful Jenny Ortega. Like, Jenny Ortega shouldn't even look at them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's so, because I think she's so beautiful. I think she's, and I think in the role she was just so great. I'm just like, Wednesday would never give these guys the time of day. I don't disagree with you there, right? I think that's one of the flaws of the show. I do think,
but
go on. Oh, I was going to say, I do think that towards the end of the show, they kind of, it's one of those things where like they introduce, it was very tropey, like the very first few episodes, for that very reason, right? Because they try to kind of play with those tropes by the end of the series, which I've seen a lot of these teen dramas. So like, it's just like, even that idea of like kind of flipping these tropes on their head is kind of already now at this point a trope. So her main love interest, the normie, who is the coffee boy. Spoiler, guys, if you don't want to know, if you want to delve too deep into the mystery, but he is he's the bad guy. He is the main killer working with. Can you guess who he's working with?
The Dean.
The you saw? No. Christina Ricci's character. They are the two that are in cahoots together to bring down Nevermore. It felt. They were trying to go with like kind of the Scream aspect, right? Like the reveal. And I thought it was kind of just like, it still wasn't working. I can't stand for the life of me the other love interest Xavier, I think is his name.
Yeah, Xavier.
I could not. I was kind of just like, it's just like, this is a character that for sure you could have given it to like a woman. It's, you know, or like let's change it up. Wednesday is not. I feel like Wednesday would be definitely Pan. You know what I mean? So I don't think Wednesday. And they were introduced. There is, I think, a third love interest in the show, who I thought she was going to end up with, who does present much more Hispanic. He is a nerd. He's an outsider within the outsiders. I thought this is who she was going to end up with.
Yeah.
Eugene, the adorable Eugene. I was just like, this is who she does.
She would,
because he reminded me so much of the character from the Addams Family Values, that nerdy kid that, like, you know, is completely devout to
exactly her. Everything that like a viewer would look at and be like, oh gosh, what a geek, what a loser, it goes against the grain. Wednesday would look at them and be like, so attractive, right? But like everyone that, you know, like the classically attractive heteronormative white boy is the one that fucking Wednesday likes. And I'm like, that's not who Wednesday, that's not the way that the Addams are established. What works so well about Morticia and Gomez's relationship, right? And we talked about this in the last episode, is that the way that they are overly affectionate with each other goes against a way that people think is the appropriate way to be when it comes to love. Don't be too expressive. Don't be too PDA, right? So they're always the opposite. And it's almost like they're making a commentary about, you know, the way that we show affection or the way that we describe and show love. So in a society, too, that is incredibly heteronormative, you would think that Wednesday Addams would be not that. She would actually, or she would just be more freer. She would be more expansive. And it was, I couldn't get past that. The fact that they kept like doing these things more so in that way that just didn't feel like her, didn't feel like an Addams at all. And it was just like the most like basic teenage thing that I've seen before with the most boring boys.
Well, compared to Wednesday and her family, she is Addams in the sense she would be creepy or spooky.
Macabre,
right? But her thing from the get-go is, I don't want emotions. Emotions are for the weak. And every time any of these boys approached her, she has been deadpan, not blinking her eyes, and like moving on, right? She maybe had moments where persistence with her and trying to show that they want to engage with her has been interesting for her, because this is a girl that has been an outcast in all the high schools she has gone to. She's never really had a friend. So these are people reaching out. But at the same time, too, she's not emotionally connecting with these guys who, can I put a point here? Make a point? Who very white, but also they are what we would consider to be outcast passing, right? Or normie passing. They could pass as normal people in the world, in the real world, right? Unlike a lot of their peers who can't, right? When they have no face, when they have spiders as snakes as hair, when their eyes are a certain color that is different from the norm. These guys would be like the white passing guys in Latino culture, so to speak, right? But what does attract them ends up being how very broken, twisted, and dark they are. I mean, what does Wednesday say? Oh, my first kiss was with a serial killer.
Right.
I must have a type. You know, that would be more attractive to her than the fact that he was a dude
mildly
that,
attractively,
a dude that's semi good looking.
Yeah, because like I don't think they set up the love interest in the way that I thought worked for the show. Like I understand your critiques, Nicole, and I don't disagree with them completely, but I do think the show, for a show that's still trying to do what it is, which is be a teen drama, and I love a teen drama, right? Like I should have written dissertations on, like this should have been my focus and my career, like teen dramas in retrospect. But the thing with a good teen drama is that like she wasn't love struck right from the get-go. In fact, it took her, I think, like majority of the series, the first season, to finally get even an interest in in either of these characters,
even
right?
hug somebody.
Yeah. So I think they did a good job of like kind of making her abrasiveness and kind of calling her out on it and stuff. I appreciated. I don't know. I think I appreciated the way they handled the love interest, because like I think what Eddie's right is like, yeah, she was never attracted to them physically. She was never attracted to them because of like their antics. She became attracted to them the more she actually learned about them,
right. So, but my critique though is not the characters. My critique is in the casting, and the fact that like they didn't even think to write it. They just wrote it as two white boys.
Oh yeah, no, agreed, fine, yeah, fine, yeah.
Like,
I think
they could have been anybody.
I felt the same way. You're right. They could have been anybody. I don't disagree with you there. I actually think so. I thought they were going to set up that like maybe her love would be her roommate, played by like the cute girl, right? Like she's all bubbly. She felt like a Disney character, like a Disney Channel character. I thought they were going to set up as like this is who her true.
Oh yeah, no, I knew that was never going to go there. But it's so interesting too because it's also like the show could have also. If it wanted to be a show that actually had something to say about representation, then it kind of should have had that in mind when it wrote it. It kind of felt like they didn't. And I actually found like an article that articulated really well one of the things that I had of the show. And I'll link the article in the show notes. This is more particularly about the Black characters because there have been critiques about the way that Black people are depicted in the show. Because it's also Tim Burton, and he's not very good at it.
There's only, I think, literally one Black character.
Yeah, and like she's immediately the bully.
The mayor's son.
Oh, and the mayor, and the mayor's
and also,
son.
yeah.
Right.
So this is it. The Black characters in Wednesday don't feel like there was any intention behind their Blackness. They feel like they weren't written to be Black, just to check a diversity box, so Burton wouldn't have to deal with questions about the show's lack of it. Mm-hmm. And for a show that is all about outcasts and stuff, it's coming from a very specific outcast point of view, which is the Tim Burton one, which is just like, oh, wow, look at me. You know, this, I have to keep saying it, heteronormative outcast, because everything is presented in such. When I turned to it and I was like, oh man, this is going to be really cool in representation. And I saw it, I was like, this is what I get. I can't connect to any of this shit. This is just like everything else, which is whatever. The story still was an interesting story. And the performance were good and stuff. But in terms of it and that too, it was just like, well, this just feels like everything else.
I think that's a valid point in terms of the casting for all of them, right? Like, it's just like they didn't have to, like, yes, there was no Black identity in the Black characters. I 1,000,000% agree on that. The only one that kind of had an inkling of like where identity does play a role is actually Wednesday and stuff, because like when she gets her flashbacks and she meets she meets like her ancestors, right? I'm assuming they're from Gomez's side. Yeah. Goody Addams. They what's it called? Goody Addams' mother is very clearly not a white person, right? She actually looks indigenous, in my opinion. And I found that interesting. I'm just like, okay, so like they're not it's not like white people who are still like the ancestors of Gomez, right? They're very much making Gomez like part of this like ancestral, like he has like Hispanic roots down to his core, at least on his side of the family. But yeah, I don't disagree with you. Like, in terms of like the idea of the race of these characters isn't important, specifically the ancillary characters. I would agree, but I think having Gomez, for example, be very very played by a very very well-known Hispanic guy. Well-known. We know that he's Hispanic, is Luis Guzman, and then Jenna Ortega, who is herself Hispanic. I don't know. I did feel like a big moment, and while I couldn't relate to, I'm not going to be able to relate to Wednesday Addams, but I was able to eat up the show because it's one of those things. This is like one of those genres that I just enjoy, right? So
teen mysteries, yeah. Well, because a lot of these, so we're in like the renaissance of reboots. And a lot of them are playing with recasting and different representation of these characters that we know and love with something new and interesting to say. So I don't want to like completely like let this blind me in terms of my disappointment with the show in that regard, because you take it all out. Was it a good mystery? Yeah, it was fine. Like, I think the show was good. But it's also like if the point of doing a reboot is to kind of look at things in a different way, and you failed on that front, then like what is there to take from this? Now, I can't fully say, having finished the show, so maybe then you can chime in at least on like what you think the purpose of this was. But it makes me at least like question whether or not I want to move forward with it, because I really don't think they're doing anything that different that is worth me continuing. Does that make sense?
I think that different from other medium, like other things from like this genre. I don't think they're doing much different. I would agree with you. I actually think where they're doing more different is like, in fact, it's the actual Addams family themselves.
Is it just simply the casting though? Is it just like, okay?
No, it's not just no. It's not just the casting. I think even like Uncle Fester is a vastly different portrayal that we've had from the past, right? Here he's like a thief, right? He's like
almost like a professional, like
a professional, like a rogue almost,
and will kill if necessary.
Yeah. Played by Fred Armisen, who I thought it was actually one of my favorite performances of the season.
Who's Venezuelan, German, and Korean.
I thought he was Cuban. Yeah. I thought he was like, his big thing is that he was born on like a boat from Cuba to Florida.
That sounds like urban legend.
Yeah, like he like his mother gave birth to him on a drum in a boat or something.
It could have happened. But his background could still be that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But yeah, no. So, but yeah, Fred Armisen was a completely reimagining, and more importantly, though, Wednesday. I think just having Wednesday in this kind of setting, I think for me was reimagining enough, right? This is what I wanted to talk about with like the Catherine Zeta-Jones and like Luis Guzman and Jenny Ortega casting, right? I do think it was kind of a stunt by Netflix, especially they promoted it so heavily. And I'm not trying to diminish the fact that like I actually enjoyed the performances, and the fact that we do have like more Hispanic representation for this little niche supernatural mystery. Like, usually when it comes to teen dramas, you don't usually get a lot of Latinos front and center. For supernatural ones, even less so, right? I think if ever do you get like a Latina front and center. So big moment for this genre, I would say. Stunt casting nonetheless, because I think Netflix pushed really hard in their PR marketing for this show. It's like, oh, we're giving you guys a Hispanic Addams family. And to your point, Latino. They didn't necessarily deliver fully on that. And it's just like, was I disappointed? A little bit, but not so much, because I think overall, the more important thing was just like, oh, but what are you gonna do with Wednesday, who is such a beloved character that we have come to know for many years, right? And I would argue that's more important than just like the representation. But it was a nice representation to have nonetheless. I think it is important to have something that like younger audiences, who I think is a target demo for this one, to see and being like, oh look, it's a granted beautiful thin Hispanic girl, sure, Latina, but nonetheless Latina, right? And it's like I said, this is like when we talked about Black Panther, right? Like there is some value in just being able to just see yourself in some of these casting decisions. And while I don't disagree with you that like I think some of the casting choices of like the love interest was a little bit on the bland side, what can you do? It's a Netflix show, which actually brings up my next point, which I wanted to say. So this was a Netflix show, right? I think they kind of reined in Tim Burton a little, right? Because it didn't feel like a very Tim Burton-esque show. It didn't have like the color palette completely. You could tell it was not Tim Burton's color palette. I feel like, yes, a lot of it is done in post, but it's also done in the way he just lights things. And like this one felt like it was just color coded to look like a Tim Burton film. It didn't feel as rich as a Tim Burton film does.
Yeah, I agree.
The settings themselves didn't feel like a Tim. I thought
the school did.
Not that much. Like at times a little bit, but it didn't feel like the exterior shots of it did feel very Tim Burton-esque.
Well, Tim Burton is an expressionist, right? So like the way, like in expressionism, the way that you view the world is different. Like if you think, the big one being the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, where things, are slanted and bizarre and stuff. And his films have always felt like that. Like think of his Gotham and the way he portrays Gotham and how twisted that place is. And
it's literally twisted. Like you can literally see like the angles. You can see like the buildings not looking like they should be standing upright. You know what I mean? Like you see that in the set design that usually comes with in Tim Burton films. I'm thinking even the Alice in Wonderland, right? Like granted that took place in Wonderland, but like very angular, very, very pointy, very round. You know what I mean? You didn't get anything of that in this, which I thought was a little bit of just like, then why have him direct? Like why push so hard?
That's what he's supposed to bring to the project for sure. Like even in Edward Scissorhands, which is in a suburban area, that's a suburban area that is wonky as hell to me. But this definitely felt like a studio backlot.
Right, it did. It felt like just almost a generic like Netflix show. And this is it. This is where I think the marketing for the show kind of went away because they really pushing Tim Burton. He only directed like half the episodes.
That's the thing,
and
too.
He was also producer, but like it's not like this isn't like a Tim Burton-esque film. Again, and I'm just critiquing this show. I am a fan. I ate this shit. I binged this show because I enjoyed it. Right, but now I'm going to call out the show for its flaws here, and I think this is one of the major ones where I think if you're gonna have like someone like Tim Burton, you might as well utilize his vision as best you can. Unless, here's the thing, what you just said is like, oh, I don't know, Tim Burton's been phoning it in, so maybe this is the Tim Burton that we got.
Yeah, maybe it's a bit of both. I want to talk about Christina Ricci really quick because I think she's a producer of this. It's something that she's been heavily involved in, and Christina Ricci, as far as I know, isn't doing as much as I'm not aware of what else she's been working on.
I think that's the thing. Christina Ricci has been working while we haven't been watching. She'll do Lifetime originals if it comes to it, but girl is always making her money.
Oh
respect. Respect for Christina Ricci.
I love her, and I think one of her most iconic roles is her portrayal of Wednesday Addams when she was a baby, and I do think that she is also the reason that we think of Wednesday as the way she is. You can read one thing in the Charles Addams, and then you could see the show, but like when you see Christina Ricci and the portrayal she does of Wednesday, like she owned it. And like from now on, Wednesday will never be the same. So she's actually a big part of the reason as to why the show even got made. In portrayals of Wednesday Addams, do you think that Jenny Ortega, is it Jenny or Jenna? I actually don't know. I think it's Jenna Ortega.
Jenna.
Yeah.
Is it Jenna?
Jenna, yeah. Do you think Jenna Ortega brought something different and new, or do you think that she actually, like, the throne has kind of like, Roger Moore taking over Sean Connery's James Bond and doing it in his own way? Like, do you think now the torch has been passed well enough to this next actress?
Yes, I actually do. I think Jenna Ortega killed it in this role. I thought she made it her own in some ways too.
Yeah.
I think the Rotten Tomatoes summary of the reviews were fair, in which is just like, this could be any CW show if not for Jenna Ortega's commitment to the role. I think without this series, for sure, if this series was the same and you didn't have Jenna Ortega to anchor it, it might have been a flop. But because I think Jenna Ortega was so good in this role, I think that helped me much more enjoy the show. I thought she was so good.
Yeah.
She was really good. I mean,
let's not forget about the dance that she choreographed.
The dance that she choreographed. Do you know what I mean? Did you get a chance to see that?
I saw the dance. Yeah.
I mean, the
TikTok is going crazy.
TikTok has got crazy emulating this dance, and she just did it herself. She said in an interview she was just watching like goth kids in the 80s how they would dance and stuff. So you just try to like kind of.
Oh, I think I know what movie she watched. Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree that the absolute best thing about this is her performance.
Jenna Ortega was great,
and I love the fact that mostly it was all about her. A lot, she was in practically every scene. So that's why even too a lot of these characters, her friends and the other students kind of fell in the wayside of it, because I feel like, I mean, they were the color to this particular iconic character.
Yeah. If you're kind of looking for something very like Addams Family, this show I think might disappoint because it's all about Wednesday. And they really are expanding her character. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we should have known because I think I had the reaction. I was like, wait, we're only going to get Morticia and Gomez for like one episode? And I was just like, I guess that makes sense. The name of the show is called Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not called the Addams Family. It's called Wednesday. So we're literally just focusing on Wednesday. It was a little bit of a learning curve, but I think by second episode, I was okay with it because I think Jenna Ortega was just, I think she's so captivating. She really just, I think her expressionless face and stuff, she had the big eyes and just her deadpan delivery. She
wouldn't blink.
It.
She wouldn't blink. That was her thing. She would not blink in certain things.
See, I didn't even notice there was something. Yeah, and that would add to the eeriness of her performance.
Yeah.
The other great thing about the show, though, was actually the other two great things I would say is Christine Gwendolyn. I think that's her name. The headmistress.
Ah, okay.
Game of Thrones and Star Wars.
From Game of Thrones and Star Wars. I thought she was another one that was also a strong performance.
I have a question. Because they were kind of making her the red herring.
There were so many red herrings.
But
go on.
Is she in love with Morticia?
No. Oh, that would have been a good twist, though.
That's
maybe not 100%. Oh.
I guess it's not one. Actually,
it could be a love jealousy. There was definitely a level of jealousy. You're
right.
There.
It's not. I read it as her being in love with Gomez, but they never 100% confirmed that. We just know that she is in love with at least one of them. So you're right. That might have been. I didn't read it that way, but they didn't close the book on that read, possibly. Okay. Which I think that is an interesting read. I could see that. That actually would have been way more fascinating if they had explored that. But I thought she was a great performance. But the other thing that I actually loved about the show was Thing. I think Thing.
Oh yeah, Thing was great. I loved Thing.
Definitely as a character that has literally is just a hand. I think he was much more realized than it. You're right. It than the ones we saw in the Addams Family movies. Right. This Thing felt much more like an actual character, and I appreciate it. I thought, I think it worked out. And then
I want Thing as a pet.
The Thing's relationship with her roommate, I thought was also kind of endearing, right?
Yeah.
The Thing was played by he's a Romanian magician named by Victor Doromantu. And I think this was his first kind of film performance, acting performance. And interesting thing that he, how he worked out, because there's certain points where Thing communicates, so he kind of used like codes. He used like sign language. He mix of sign language, mix of like the hand gestures scuba divers use and the Marine Corps use, and then he just improvised on some things.
Great hand acting, man. Like, wow.
Yeah. My favorite is when he's pissed off. When he's pissed off at Wednesday and he's reading the magazine in the other girl's bed, like this shit, like that's that kind of thing.
Yeah,
and of course the really emotional scene when she finds him nailed to the wall.
Oh yeah,
and
Thing almost died.
And he almost dies, So spoilers, please.
Yeah, I've given a spoiler reporting, but again, most watched show on Netflix and stuff. Now, I do want to come back to this important question that we didn't touch on, but I think I previewed it last week. But do you think Catherine Zeta-Jones is guilty of brown facing?
There we go.
I don't think so because one, Morticia's pale. Now, are you saying in terms of her career or in this role?
Both.
Oh, wow.
Either.
I think no to both, personally. Because I never thought of her as either being a Latina or trying to, like, get by as one. I mean, when I think of her roles in Chicago, no. In Rock of Ages, no. And like
she was in Rock of Ages?
She was in Ocean's 12. Yeah.
What about Zorro?
Zorro's the only one. And The Haunting, no. No Reservations, no. Yeah, like I've seen her in a lot of other movies. That's the thing, too. Is like she's not
Crash.
She's not in. No, she was in Traffic. I don't remember. I remember her being in like the white people's storyline in Traffic. I don't remember her being like with Benicio del Toro down in Mexico in Traffic.
wasn't she speaking dropping Spanish in traffic? If I
Well,
remember
you could
correctly?
speak Spanish and not be.
I don't know.
I don't know. I never thought of her
wanna
like that.
I don't want to
you
know.
wanna stir, you want to stir the pot
A
here.
little bit, but I love Catherine Zeta-Jones. I was a little disheartened to find out she wasn't. And this is a me problem, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Because I thought she was one of mi gente, and now she's not. And I'm just like, what? And then when Eddie is just like, neither is Antonio Banderas. I'm just like, what? I can't. This is like harsh realizations, but like stuff that we had to deal with, on like some level.
You pulled down your poster of Antonio
I
Banderas.
did. I'm just like, I guess I can't like Puss in Boots anymore.
So do you think then, like, people from like Spaniards shouldn't like make a living off of playing more so like Latino characters, like Mexicans, Caribbeans, South Americans kind of thing? Like, do you actually feel upset if they were to?
Now, I think it depends on the context. If we're doing a historical piece where you could be living in Mexico but still be Spanish, then I think that's fine, right? Does that make sense? But if you're playing like an actual Mexican like day laborer who has crossed the border to get a job or sell drugs or something, maybe leave that for an actual person who is of color.
But there is something interesting that is developing in two fronts. One, when it happens, we're like, oh, okay. But then we feel like, but they should have given to someone of that ethnic group. If it's about a Mexican American, it should be Mexican American. If it's about a person LGBTQ, it should be they should get. They're out there, actors. They're there, right? They should represent.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're seeing actors who are refusing roles, not taking on roles when they're asked to represent a certain ethnic group. They're like, well, no, I'm this. I'm either white or I'm this. Give that to a person that is that of that ethnic group.
Now, what do you think about Ana de Armas getting cast as Marilyn Monroe?
What is Ana de Armas?
She's Cuban. Fully Cuban.
Okay.
And she's playing Marilyn Monroe, who is not Cuban. Her name was Norma Jean Baker.
Okay.
So what do we... I'm just wondering, like, I didn't mind it, but, like, in other cases, we'd actually rather, if you're going to make a movie about Celia Cruz, she better be fucking Cuban. But, like,
I think
Marilyn Monroe, sure, let's have a Cuban play her.
I think this may be a controversial statement, but I think if
here we go.
The majority, if it's a minority representing a white person, doesn't have the same impact than a white person who has already all the privileges of the world taking one of our roles, right? Because one role being taken away from one white actress is nothing compared to the few roles that are written for minority groups that are taken away by white actresses. Like, I know Scarlett Johansson gets a lot of shit for this, but like, you can't play an Asian woman, Scarlett Johansson. You just cannot. you know?
Yeah.
Or Emma Stone when she played
a native Hawaiian.
Like a native Hawaiian.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, those roles are few and far between. So like, give those to the people who are minorities.
You know what? 100%. I'm with that. I mean, I don't even care if somebody's like double standard.
Take a double standard.
Take your double standard and shove it up your white ass, man.
Like, until the things balance out, like that's why there is going to be a double standard and stuff.
No, it's true. Yeah. No, I do agree with that.
But yeah, we kind of
well,
really
but that's the thing too, is that
here.
this was the promise of this too, and it either delivered for you or it didn't. But the promise is the representation, and that's what a lot of these reboots are doing, is that they want to tackle things differently. That's why The Little Mermaid is going to be so exciting for us to talk about and for us to look at it. Because is it going to be a completely different film? No. What is going to be different though is the way that they handle these characters and how they represent them. Other than that, it's going to be the same exact fucking movie. But those things change. And these things, they impact our lives and whatnot. So I do think that talking about the different types of representation and the changes we're seeing in representation in movies and in television is actually very much worth this discussion.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like I said, I know I gave some criticisms of the show. I ultimately enjoyed it because this is my genre. This is a genre that I have just always enjoyed since I was a little kid, and I still eat up. Like, truly, what I loved about Wednesday was the fact that it took, like, the best of, like, Riverdale, the best of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the best of Harry Potter, I guess, even, right? Like, and it just gave me this amalgamation, and then you put like a Hispanic actress front and center, and it was like, okay, this was enjoyable. Was it a perfect show? No, but you know what? You don't have to be perfect to be enjoyable sometimes. You don't. I mean, you don't have to speak about the Latino experience. Next time, just don't promise it, Netflix. Next time, just don't make a big deal about the fact that you have Luis Guzman playing Gomez.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they know how to get people there, and that's why it was the highest watched show, surpassing Stranger Things.
No, I think it was the most watched show because it was so bingeable. It's such a bingeable show. It's so enjoyable.
Yeah. So in terms of, like, just plain old story, I too love a good mystery. And I do, for me, I'm also like, TV shows are too long. It loses my interest after a while. I thought the mystery was okay. I thought, if there is there going to be a season 2? Did they, like, cliffhang it?
They haven't
greenlighted
announced
yet.
It,
They're
but
just
I can't imagine that
it.
they're not.
Is there a mystery set up?
Yes,
there is?
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's, like, the hint of one, but, like, it wasn't. If we don't get the answers to it, it's not like the end of the world.
Okay. I feel like there's this great Agatha Christie quote, and I wish I could remember it right now, but it's like, one clue. Oh, what's that? I'm going to look it up right now. Hold on. Because it's so good.
While she does this, I'm going to...
We should talk about the fact that they introduced the psychic aspect of Wednesday, which is new.
Oh, yeah. That is new. How do you feel about that, Eddie?
I like it. I like that it hints. It also makes interesting thing because Nevermore usually takes on people that have, like, a somewhat of an ability or an... so it's interesting that it's something that comes up after the fact.
The other interesting thing I thought about the show was the fact that, like, this is the first time I think we've had, like, actual concrete evidence that there is something supernatural with the Addams family, right? Yeah. Usually it's, like, kind of like, it's just like wink wink maybe, but, like, I feel like this is, like, very explicit.
Yeah.
like what is supernatural?
What's Lurch? Come on,
yeah,
everybody.
like,
what is Lurch?
He's a Frankenstein monster, right? Like,
actually, this is interesting because I think the quote was in Wednesday. I think that's where I heard it recently. And I was like, oh, that's right. There's that quote. But Google is telling me it's Ian Fleming, who's the author of James Bond. So whoever it is. And I think this is how it goes. But it's like when there's a mystery, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like in terms of developing clues and stuff. Once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is enemy action. Do you remember her saying, like, a quote like that where it's like once is a coincidence, 2 is a clue, 3 is proof? It was like something like along those lines. Do you remember that quote?
Yeah, I think it's when
she's
talking to the sheriff of all things.
And then she says, I don't believe in coincidences.
Right, something along those lines.
Yeah. And a good mystery will, like, it's like you're convinced, then you're thrown off, and then you're like, that was the only conclusion kind of a thing. That to me is how a good mystery works. You kind of always have to be, like, giving out new information and stuff. So in terms of the mystery, other than it being slow moving, in the first couple of episodes, other than there being a monster, there's not much information that is given. So I did have qualms with that in terms of, like, being, like, in terms of my mystery. It's like, where are my new clues? Where's my evidence? Where's my this, or that? Like, it just, I don't know. Did you guys feel like it was a fast moving mystery? Because there was also so much going on that it felt uneven too, which, whatever, I get it. It's a TV show. There's other stuff and there's B stories and other characters.
I don't know. I thought it was...
you get stuff later on too.
And her stuff
and her visions move that forward. When she learns more about her parents' dark past, like what happened to them when they were students in school.
That doesn't happen until like episode 5, right?
Yeah, like the halfway point.
The halfway point.
For me,
not even.
That's
I think
too
it's like
late.
But in terms of the actual, I'm trying to think. No, but also I'm like Riverdale, you would hate Riverdale, right? Because Riverdale is the show that had to get padded with 24 episodes for a full CW season.
Oh my God.
So there's literally episodes where like not one thing has to do with like the overarching mystery of like who killed this girl's brother, right? Like, so that's the pitfall of sometimes like teen mysteries, but it didn't bother me because like I think overall each episode still connected overall to like the monster and like the mystery itself. Like maybe mystery is the no, it kind of wasn't mystery. This was it's who's doing it kind of mystery happening here in this thing. I called it from the get-go, but like I'm also just like usually I feel like I'm pretty good at like calling it early on, like who is the culprit.
You are? Oh.
Yeah.
Hold on.
You should read more mystery books.
So to piggyback what you said, or just this is an episode 3, Friends or Foe, where she goes to paraphrase Agatha Christie.
There we go.
1 coincidence is just a coincidence. 2 are a clue, and 3 are proof.
Yes, that's exactly it.
That's what she says.
That's exactly it.
Yep.
Yep.
Just narrating away.
And that's the thing, but things have to be constantly coming up to throw you off and stuff. And at least I felt like in the first couple episodes, things were not coming up enough for me to even like be like, so what's the mystery? Who's the monster? That's it.
Who is the... Yes, right. Okay, yeah, fine. In that sense, I would agree with you. Fine. The mystery... Things don't start falling into place until, like, halfway point. And, yes, as someone who loves mysteries, I understand that. But I love a teen drama, and I just wanted to know more about, like, we have to compete in this random race in the middle of a murder. Like, that's what I love about these silly things. Like, Harry Potter is king of this. Like, yo, there's, like, literally... a demon coming out of like your bathrooms, but like, okay, sure, let's keep focusing.
Let's play
on, like,
Quidditch, guys.
But the thing is that she does point that out, and she always challenges the head mistress on this. She says the problem here is your complacency on what's going on here in the school and the town. Okay, and it's good because she's. The funny thing is that she is challenging the headmistress, and the headmistress says, "You don't know what I have to do to keep us all safe." You know, and you don't learn that until the end. Yeah. And that's when it's a realization for Wednesday to be like, all this time, you know, this is what she was doing. What she did the best is love the school. You know,
it's so funny because we're watching this as Eddie and I are playing a Dungeons and Dragons campaign where the stakes are high. We have to save the universe or something, right? But first, here, you're stuck in this high school where you guys are playing substitute teachers for 3 days, solve this murder. And I'm just like, literally, there's way bigger things going on here. Why are we doing this, right? That's what a good teen drama is. It's just like, yo, like, there's murderers happening here. Why are we playing this this Nevermore tournament? You know what I mean? Because that's the thing. But that's the thing with like I think that might be the appeal of a good high school drama. Like everything always seems so larger than life and exaggerated. But like when you were in high school, everything
is that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the appeal of
everything
these shows.
had that life or death.
Yeah.
You know, and also what I do love about this show is that she calls out the monsters, and the monsters are not the vampires or the Gorgons or the werewolves. The monsters are like people like the mayor or the complacency of the sheriff, always thinking it's the weirdos that are doing this, you know, and situation even with the founders when they find out who the founder of this town is, like this monster, like not like a monster of a human being,
a bigot, basically,
you know, who like killed people.
Who
burned them alive.
You know,
there was a great line though. There was a great line where Christina Ricci, who ultimately proves to be the bad guy and descendant of this evil person who raises him from the dead, she is like talking to him, like spilling her heart out to him, but he's like from the Pilgrim era, right? So as she's talking, he just basically says, "Enough's talking, foul woman, you wench. Know your place in a man's world," something along those lines. And he walks off, and it just cuts to her just saying, just like, "Never meet your heroes," right? And it was just silly stuff like that made the show so fun. I think Christina Ricci was good. I called it right from the get-go that she was the villain.
She had to be. I mean, she can't be involved and not have a major role.
You know, of course, no. It's just like she is the Wednesday Addams. She has to pass down the torch, be the main adversary.
Yeah, she's great. She's so beautiful too. She's still like really attractive.
Yeah.
Have you not seen
Yellow Jackets?
Yellow Jackets?
Is that a TV show?
That's like,
Yeah.
it's a Showtime show, but it's
She's crazy in that. Oh my god.
it's one of those shows that takes place
Scary.
in two different time periods. One is in the 90s, where these high school students, their plane crashes, and now they're stuck in the woods, and like shit goes down. And then the present, in which the surviving students are someone is digging up the past and stuff. And some of this, and there's only like I think like 4 survivors out of the initial 13 that we saw who survived the plane crash. So it's just like, how did we get from there to here?
Oh, that's
Christina
cool.
Ricci is one of the present
go back to
characters
that
and
show.
stuff, and she is
Nice. Cool.
They got Emmy nominated, girl.
I don't watch the
As will
Emmys.
Jenna Ortega for Wednesday.
we shall see about that. But what do you guys think? Did you watch Wednesday? Are you an Addams Family fan? Did you like Tim Burton? Did you watch Netflix? Do you watch Netflix? I mean, tell us your thoughts. Email us, remakesrebootsrevivals@gmail.com, Instagram @remakesrebootsrevivals, Twitter @remakespodcast, and you can find us on YouTube and Facebook. Just search Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals. And if you enjoy this podcast, please find us on your listening platform and give us a rating and a review if you can. And if you would like to call in and let us know your thoughts, you can call in this phone number and leave a voice memo.
862-248-2326. That's 862-248-2326.
Sweet. And I mean, that's it for this time. Eddie, have you read your Agatha Christie?
Almost finished.
Okay, I'm excited. I love a good mystery. Can't wait for you guys to see Glass Onion. That's what I'm excited about, because that's a good mystery.
I'm watching it at home.
Well, yeah, now you have no choice but to do that. So.
Oh, good. I was realizing that like having movie theaters is not accessible for people who are not handy capable. And movie theaters are problematic. Yeah, because most movie theaters aren't accessible.
Yes, they
for
are.
people who are hard. No, not majority of them. I think we live in an area where that's like more common for us. Like, yeah, because we
Almost
have a higher population.
Every
density.
theater I've been to
But
has a handicap section.
around the country, it's a lot harder for people who have disabilities to get to theaters. And
Have you gone to a
So-
theater in every state, and you've got your data on that? Like,
you
where's
know
your
what?
proof?
I watch TikToks. All right, I watch TikToks about this, and what's it called? Any chance to critique the movie theater industry, I'm here for. That's why TikTok feeds me this content.
Well, being that I go
TikTok-
to the theater
TikTok
a lot
knows, like, you hate
with my
the theater.
parent,
Here.
who is disabled. I think handicap is not the word
Does your
anymore.
I didn't say handicap, didn't I? Did I say handicap? I said handy-abled.
Handy-capable.
Handy-capable.
We never ever have an issue. Maybe
So-
we have it good in New Jersey, according to you. It's another part of this country.
I think
thing.
the Northeast. I think the Northeast is pretty good, but like there are a lot. Some don't have the captioning availabilities for people who are hard of hearing. Some don't even have like literal ramps sometimes.
Yeah,
It's more like nationwide type of thing. But I'm just saying, me watching a film in Netflix is actually support of our handy capable friends.
Well, I'm glad you made that statement. All movie theaters should close now. Well, guys, until next week, stay unoriginal.